So I'm way out here on the east side of Cincinnati, Ohio, in a city called Georgetown. I'm close to Hammersville. We're somewhere near there, right? Behind me, backyard deck, protected with thin residential deck paint and stain its entire life, and had gotten severely weathered with peeling deck paint. And over the past decade, the only thing that I've done as the leading deck restoration resurfacing professional in the Cincinnati area has been to try to pull homeowners away from thin residential deck paints and stains. And listen, what the end result of the years and years and years of protection here on this deck with thin residential deck paints and stains was devastating. The reason is they don't actually protect your decks. So this one had on it sort of like a solid type stain that left a very thin film. Stain is supposed to soak into wood, but a lot of the deck ones will actually leave a very tiny film, and that's usually indicative of a colored stain, a solid colored stain. And that's kind of what was on this deck. The problem is they're not thick enough to fill in your nail and screw holes. Okay, and you guys have no idea how important that is. The average homeowner does not understand, okay? But they're not thick enough to do that. They're not thick enough to fill in the cracks on a deck. They're not thick enough to walk on, so they're not rated for foot traffic. And they're not thick enough to put up with that dude up there. He's up there hiding somewhere. Its UV rays can come down and go right through those thin residential deck paints and stains and bed into the wood, and that obliterates their adhesion. Less than notebook paper thin. That's all the protection they provide. That's it. On this deck and every deck that I've done, Kong armor, the world's toughest deck armor. Every deck that I've done over the past 12 years, Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, Southeast Indiana, hundreds and hundreds of them. The goal has been move the homeowner away from that and get them into an actual coating that can protect their deck, that can fill in their nail and screw holes, that can fill in their board cracks, okay? That's thick enough where the sun comes down, the rays come down, it cannot embed all the way through the film of Kong armor and get to the surface and obliterate that adhesion. So thick build, high build, what we call high stretch, right? That's what we have to have on decks. Here's the problem. And here's why it's hard for homeowners to do that. By the time they get to the point, and I've already showed you how this one looked here, this deck looked here, where it's got peeling everywhere. The specification for refinishing is to sand all that, okay? So the decks, they need completely sanded, and the labor and the cost is massive. And what it does is it forces a lot of these deck owners in Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky to move to what we call plank replacement, tear down to the frame replacement. Because if we're talking about, here's the problem, the sanding cost, sandblasting, any of this type of stuff to remove that stuff properly, the cost of it, by the time you get the cost for that, plus the refinishing and all that, it runs right up to the cost. It's absurd of replacing your boards, and the homeowner knows that thin paints and stains don't work. They know that in their head, and so they can't comprehend the value. They don't see the equity, the value there. And so they move to replacement. Okay. Kong armor. How do we go around that, right? What we've done is we've designed a high build industrial grade coating that does all the things I told you about. I won't repeat them. But what it does also is it's capable of what we call the LockDown encapsulation of peeling deck paints, flaking, disintegrating deck stains without sanding, without chemical peel, any of that high labor, high dollar stuff that makes it to where homeowners can't find a contractor to help them. Nobody wants to do it, or they're unwilling to foot out the money for it because they feel that replacement's a better value. Kong, notorious for its ability to lock down and encapsulate thick DIY rescue coatings that homeowners use, like peeling Behr Deck Over, peeling Restore 10X, peeling Cabot Deck Correct. Any of these, Kong can come in. We can come in, do a swift washing, a nice washing, and then Kong will absolutely encapsulate, lock down any of the peeling coating that's left on these decks. And that's what you're seeing right here, right now in Georgetown, Ohio. That's what you're seeing. We've come in and we've taken a backyard deck, and all I've done is repeated the process. Maybe I should introduce myself. My name is Anthony Ford. I'm the proprietor of Kong Armor, the world's toughest deck armor. And it's deck rescue painters, deck restoration painters here in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, Southeast Indiana. And I do this 100 times a year, every single year. And all I've done here is repeated the process. We've taken a deck that's been protected in thin residential deck paints and stains, that's peeling everywhere, that's severely weathered because it hasn't had the proper protection. And I've averted the homeowner around the hassle of dealing with multiple contractors to resolve it, around that high labor, sanding, chemical peel, sandblasting, flipping boards. I've averted them around that, and I've brought them to the truth in deck protection. High build, high stretch, industrial grade deck armor that can lock down and encapsulate any structure on planet Earth, peeling or not. And the results, we just repeat it again and again and again and again. And the results are stunning. They're just absolutely stunning. Just an extreme high build here that we delivered in Georgetown with Kong. 30 to 60 times thicker than thin residential deck paints and stains. UV block technology. Splinter lock technology. We came in. We got the thick build out. After we got everything prepped up and repaired, the deck restoration painters of Kong probably replaced around 5 boards in here. 316 stainless steel screws on anything that we replaced so it wouldn't rot. But once we got everything washed and prepped up, repaired, we just brought the industrial grade in here and we did the encapsulation. Now, look at our post. Look at the high quality. No cracks in our post, all filled in with silverback epoxy, the world's toughest deck post crack filler, world's toughest deck epoxy filler repair epoxy for decks, right? We've done all that, and then the encapsulation and the lockdown. We call it the world's toughest deck armor. We call it lifetime deck armor. It's part of the Kong Armor lifetime deck armor system. That system, it delivers that avertment that I just told you about, where we avert them around that and we bring them to the truth and protection. We get them there. Then we stay with them for life. lifetime limited warranty, lifetime service promise. So we're going to stay with these deck owners now for as long as they own the Kong Armor lifetime deck armor system. I'll stay with them. If their deck peels up everywhere massively for no reason, product failure, poor trade, I'll fix it for them for free for life. Labor and coating. They have service for life, what we call a service promise, where they can access annual cleanings, little minor spot touch-ups for dings and scrapes. Just enough to stave off dilapidation, right? I know a lot of you don't believe in that, but it's a real thing, right? So we'll give them even the care to do that for life. And what that equals is a relationship with the deck owner, okay? And it equals this deck never having to go through deck refinishing again. No more complete deck painting, deck staining cycles. It's lifetime deck armor from that point forward. Tell you what, I'll tell you how you guys can get that avertment and get to the truth if you want it, okay? Get your decks really protected. Get a high build, gorgeous, synthetic, almost composite-like finish. Extreme toughness, extreme durability. KongArmor.com. There's a button there on the website. All you got to do is click that thing. It'll say get free quote on it. But be ready for lifetime deck armor. Be ready for someone to take you around all that and deliver you to a fully restored and armor encapsulated deck. If you're not ready for that, maybe just follow us for a while or something like that, right? We're looking for who's ready. Who's ready now? Who's done playing games? Who wants all their fasteners covered over where water can't get to them anymore, right? All their board cracks filled in where water can't get to them anymore, right? Real deck protection. Who wants it? That physical barrier. We call it deck armor for life. KongArmor.com. Get there now. Let's go.